But there you go. Technical issues on the rundown. Shock. Always happens. But doesn't matter. So we're back. Obviously, good week. But, we're going to start off. We're going to segment the show slightly differently because, as you can see, Dylan's not here, but we have got some faces from Leeds Beckett. Because the Leeds Beckett had quite an interesting weekend. Not so much playing. They beat Newcastle fairly. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the love to shut down? Oh, fucking Jesus Christ. Not my problem.
It's not normally like this, lads.
Yeah,
it's not.
Right. This is live on YouTube now.
Is it still live on YouTube? Well, why have I just got a massive error that says like stream has shut down unexpectedly? But it's still live. Is it live on YouTube now?
Yeah.
Right. Don't worry about it then. Or is everyone gone? Because now it's telling me everyone's gone.
No, what? No, I'm still here.
What have you done?
I hate this piece of software. Anyway, Leeds Beckett. Obviously, interesting comments coming out of more the Newcastle camp in regards to particular tricky situations with card checks and the like. But I think I might pass it over to SJ, as I believe he knows a little bit more than I do.
Why didn't you ask the people that were there? I don't know anything.
Well, you can ask them. You can ask them. Yeah.
So, lads, what happened yesterday?
There you go. Perfect.
Brilliant. So Newcastle asked us for a card check about, I want to say maybe an hour and a half before kickoff. And obviously we haven't been asked for a card check in 5-6 years. So we didn't have cards on us. Maybe 10 or 15 guys did. So we're trying to obviously obey the rules. It's in the rule book. A bunch of our guys drive home, go get their cards. But there's certain guys that were like, okay, well, my card's not in Leeds. Or I haven't got one yet. I'm a fresher. I haven't needed it yet. I haven't got one yet. So there's certain guys that didn't have them. So we got those guys to pull up their student ID, either a photo of it or their student ID, their My Beckett membership, anything like that showed that they were, any student login. And we went through card checks, and their head coach didn't seem to be too happy with a lot of these guys, saying that, okay, well, this guy doesn't have a photo on there, and this guy doesn't have this, and asking us what we were going to do about it, kind of thing. Like at the end of the day, we just kept saying to him, like, there's an app for all this. We downloaded BUCS Play. Every single player is on there. We're registered with BUCS Play. Everyone here is enrolled in the university, or they wouldn't be here. We're not trying to cheat.
Also, I mean, in the most respectful way, if we were going to do that, we're not doing it against Newcastle. We're not pulling out. Like, it just seemed a bit, I don't know. But like, it's fine. There's their right to check. It's their right to check for the cards. It would have been nice if they communicated it more than kind of, right before kickoff. But all of that I feel was fine. The issue sort of stemmed from the post afterwards, which just made it sound like we hadn't complied with them, which we had. But also, like, for them to do that after a game where they took quite a few cheap shots, played quite a dirty game. There was a case of one of their players diving at a player's kneecaps completely away from the play, things like that. It was like
after the whistle as well.
Yeah.
After the whistle took out one of our wide receivers by his kneecaps, just cut him after a dead ball foul.
Yeah.
They didn't. Yeah, we had one of those games where it was just chippy the whole way through for absolutely no reason, and then after that they're making out on social media like we had guys who were ineligible to playing, and that's just not really fair.
But do you think that's the issue more? Is obviously everyone on social media has a bit of banter, we've all seen it, but do you think it's more the case of it's essentially accusing you guys of cheating? Now every single player is going to be like, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
Like, we've seen the rest of their posts, and like I appreciate they like shit post a meme afterwards, and that's fine. Like, that is what it is. That's how a lot of uni ball is. It's more just like insinuating that we cheated, and now every team that we play is gonna kind of like try and make that out to be the case, which is just a joke.
We're fully prepared from this point onwards to be card checked at every game.
Take your card check, yeah.
So we've, we haven't been card checked in years, and I had a conversation with the team after the game, and I said to them, look, from now on, we'll be checking cards before we get on the bus, before we go. If you don't have one because you're a fresher, go get one. We know that this is going to become a thing that happens week in, week out. We're not a team that's going to cheat. We, as Henry said, especially not against Newcastle. Like, we'd understand if this was Nottingham and Nottingham said, okay, who's this guy? Who's this guy? But like, we're not going to cheat against we're not going to cheat against anyone, but especially not Newcastle. So from now on, all our boys are going to have their cards with them. We just think it's redundant at this point. You know, BUCS Play is there. You have to have a student email to get onto BUCS Play. We do a checking on BUCS Play at every game anyway. So why are we now going back to a piece of paper in the pouring down rain, ticking names off while guys are stood there
freezing? Yeah,
getting cold after a warm up.
You go through your whole pre-game, you do your warm up, and then you have to stand there for 20 minutes because they want to check everyone's card, even though it's all.
Especially with 50, 60 guys on a roster, we're stood there for a while, going one by one, and the people watching are going, "Well, when's the game starting? What are we waiting for?" Yeah. You know, it looks unprofessional. It's something that could easily be avoided. Yeah. And speaking to some of their players after the game, they fully, because I asked a couple of their guys, you know, we speak to some of their guys through the week, and I said, well, what's this about? Like, you could have let me know, and I could have got the boys with their cards, and none of our guys would have had to have driven home to pick anything up. And they said, well, we knew we were going to catch you out. We knew we were going to, you had ineligible guys, and we don't. So, and then after the game, they still insinuated that the only reason these ineligible guys that we must have on the roster didn't play was because they did the card check. And our point is, check our roster against the roster we sent for Nottingham and the roster we used for Loughborough, and you'll see no one new has appeared, especially not to play Newcastle. It's the exact same roster. It seemed like a waste of time, and it felt pretty disrespectful, especially then making out that we're cheaters on Instagram.
I think it's the thing that Mike said, like, you do need it, but I don't think you actually do these days. I think when I spoke to Ref at the start of the year, they said you don't need it. People just still do the card check, I think, because it's almost like a traditional, like, hype thing that people do. Like, I know we do it at Brunel, but that's more just the case that we've always done it, so fuck it, let's keep doing it. But like you said, BUCS Play covers all of it now. If everything's on BUCS Play, then you're fine. I think teams can, you know, like they said, you can say to BUCS, or more specifically Tonya, can you have a look at a team? But again, like you said, there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide. You know, if there was something to hide, then we'll be in trouble by the end of this week. But I think it just Uniball bollocks, mate. We love it. We love it.
So did they play under protest, or did they just come out with a lot of waffle after?
So that's what I'm not 100% on that, because a play under protest form, the president has to sign, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, I should have signed.
Both teams have to sign it.
Yeah. So I did say at one point their head coach was, because during the card checks, he also didn't help himself out, and he was rude to a couple of our players, made fun of one of the guys' middle names. We're just going, okay, Mint, you know, you've pulled us out in the pouring rain to check cards, and now you're taking the piss while doing it. And he was basically saying to us, like, it's in the rules, you should all have your cards. And I said, look, they haven't got them. They've shown you that they're enrolled at Leeds Beckett. I mean, one of the guys he was questioning was Dawson Downing. And he said, okay, this says that Dawson Downing's enrolled in Leeds Beckett, but how do I know the man in front of me is Dawson Downing?
The man played in the SEC. You can Google him.
Google his name.
It's going to be the same photo
and
of
it's
the same guy.
Yeah, it's the exact same guy. You know, he played at Missouri. Like, if you're that worried about Dawson, go and check. Yeah. So it's as far as I'm aware, they didn't play under protest. I told them if they wanted to, they could. We'd be happy for them to do that. But it just seemed that rather than play under protest, they just wanted to make out that we're breaking rules.
I think, like, I do sort of understand where, like, Newcastle coming from in the aspect of, you know, is there right, but like, has there been last year? Well, has there been any sort of, you know, chippiness last year? Was there any sort of issues with Newcastle?
No, I mean, this is what kind of caught us off guard, is we've never really had any. I mean, there was the first game we played against Newcastle last year. They about halfway through the third quarter, they refused to play under player safety concerns. They said the refs weren't being harsh enough against penalties and whatnot. But since that, there's been absolutely no chippiness between the teams. I mean, a bunch of us have been going to their games when we've got bye weeks and supporting them, standing behind their sideline, you know, at Loughborough, at who else did they play? Notts. When they played Notts, we were there supporting them. We speak to their coaches, their players after the games. I have absolutely no idea why suddenly they decided that they wanted to, I don't know, try and catch us out, catch us off guard.
I don't even mind the card check. It's fine. If you do the card check and everything checks out, why are you then posting it like we didn't pass the card check?
Just let us know. Like I spoke to one of their coaches and one of their players days before the game and just go, oh, by the way, because one of the points they tried to make after the game was we always card check. We card check everyone. And I said, we've played you twice last year. You didn't card check us then. Because if this had happened last year, we'd by now be bringing our cards going, okay, this is the one team that card checks. So I don't get it. I don't know if it was something from their president. I heard that their president said that he saw guys who should have graduated last year coming out of the changing rooms, and that's why he decided he wanted a card check. But okay, if you graduate your undergrad and you want to come back for a master's, who's stopping that?
Or you fail a year.
Yeah. So I know there was a couple of guys that did graduate their undergrad last year and are back with masters. I mean, my housemate Luke is back on a master's, and okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're cheating in any way. It means that guys want to be part of the program, so they're sticking around.
Just how card checks in the Prem? Is it something that hasn't even continued
seen
through?
a card check in 5 years.
I know we didn't have one in Div 1. We at Loughborough, because Martin was head coach and he's very on that kind of stuff. We collected cards every single game just in case, and not once in our entire season did we get card checked. In 2 years that I was there.
No, we didn't when I was there either.
No.
I don't remember.
I have seen us do like the check with. Is that Niall just showing up now?
Of course it is.
Yep, of course it is.
I clearly missed the memo.
20 minutes late.
Everyone's together.
Yeah, we definitely did. Like we used BUCS Play, and we've done checks through that before. I've seen that happen, but no, in 4 or 5 years. I mean, one of our guys, Harry Sayer, he's been with us 5 years. He says he's never had a card check at Leeds Beckett, and I can't remember of one. So this is probably the first time.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but, I mean, I thought someone was going to say something.
You started saying something.
Yeah, and then I heard someone else say something. Oh God, awful. Tick issues. So don't get me wrong, I would like to get on to more positive things going forth, but yeah, it seems to be, Uniball memes jumping on it as well.
Before you go on that, are Newcastle, as someone that played against Newcastle for a couple of years when they were in Div 1, are they still really boring? Like they do a lot online and it comes across like they're really funny, but are they still really, really boring in person? Because they were in Div 1.
Like chat in game?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
After the game, shocking. Even worse.
We had to go with you.
Yeah, no, I already mentioned before we went live, but the only chat that their president could come up with after the game was, you guys were at a Poly and I'm at a Russell group, and so I'm all the way up here and you guys are all the way down here, and he's throwing his helmet and spitting his dummy out as his coaches are making him go up to the changing rooms. Like they had absolutely no chat. I don't mind, like between the whistles, we're just as bad as any team. We give a lot, we get a lot, we can take it, but no, they are quite.
Just a bit dull.
Yeah, they're dull, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, when you played Newcastle, did they institute the card check every time, or is this? I know that's asking a lot for you to think back on a specific card check.
I want to say yes, but they were a lot more common in our division. We did them, and I don't know why, but it might have been because of the long journeys to Scotland all the time that there was always that we didn't really know as many people. At Hull, I think they still have it. It's not saying there's a card check every game, but we had the rule that you weren't allowed to play if you didn't bring your card check. The game day manager would take the cards at the beginning of the game and he'd have them all, whether you were getting on the bus or whether it was a home game, he'd get them all straight away. And they were just the rules. So people had to have them. But if they didn't have them for whatever reason, someone's lost them or whatever, then we never had any issue with showing BUCS Play. We had one team, I think it was Glasgow, when Glasgow tried to be a bit ratty last year, when they were like, fine, you can have BUCS Play, but we need to see ID as well to go with it. And it was like, what? Like, no, we're not going to lie, like, bar off. But yeah, I want to say that they just did the same as everyone else. It was kind of like really inconsistent. There was never any like you knew or you didn't know. I liked to do them. I think I was the same as SJ kind of thing, where I liked to push them just because I wasn't willing, and I wasn't willing for us to lose games when we were losing games anyway. I wasn't willing to have that because of players not being meant to have been playing. I don't think it's necessarily a massive issue in the Div 1 borders of 2022-23, like, but I mean, like, it was quite fun. And as the boys said, they have much bigger squads than what we had, so we obviously didn't have to stand on the sideline for 10 minutes. We could get it done in 2 minutes, and it was a bit of a laugh. And yeah,
I mean, our problem's not at any point been the card check. Like, card check happens, fine. Play the game, fine. They're a bit chippy in the game. There's a bit of stuff that I don't know, didn't agree with in the game, but that's fine. It's more just afterwards. It's like, you know, I appreciate you're taking a more kind of lighthearted approach to your social media, but all it does is just
This is why I kind of asked before if they were playing under protest, because if we played under protest, I'd be like, right, I get where they're coming from. But if they're not playing under protest, then they don't really have a leg stand, and at that point they're just trying to make you look like dickheads.
Yeah. As much as I did nibble on it, I just felt like, you know, it's a fair enough thing to nibble on if you're just like, you know, spouting something that's false.
Yeah, Mike's got a good point there. Like, if I was to pull out my first year ID card right now, it's tragic. It's so tragic. 7 years ago, I was like so full of hope, and then 7 years down the line, I fucking hate you people.
You still love it.
Wow, Shay, thanks for this on this Uniball show, talking about how much you hate Uniball. Thanks. But
I only do this
to be fair, I'm fully in the boat where you can't really love Uniball until you really, really hate it. So yeah, I mean, moving on to a bit more positive stuff. Obviously, moving on to the sort of title race, seems as though it's going to be you and Nottingham again. Losing away, and then or coming at home. Just how hopefully you of, you know, potentially having that not first seed, but home field advantage come playoff time, especially given the massive game last year against UWE where you made them look mortal for 3 quarters, or maybe even 4 and a bit.
We're very hopeful for that home field advantage during playoffs.
Just got to execute.
Yeah, just got to execute. We know what we can do. It's the same thing we said last year. Is the only team that can beat us is us. So we just have to make sure that we perform for the rest of the year. We keep pushing ourselves on and off the field. And we put ourselves in a good position to get through that final.
But how does the Leeds Beckett come back from that playoff game with the Bullets, where, you know, it seemed as though that everything was trending upwards, and then their fourth quarter comeback, like in, you know, easily one of the best games of last season. Like what do you take from that? Is there a level of momentum that you've brought this season from such an impressive performance, or is it just something that, you know, will go down in Leeds Beckett infamy?
I mean, we use it as motivation. A lot of guys, it was between players. We say that the reason that we lost that game was we weren't conditioned, or as well conditioned as we should be. So it's been great motivation for the boys in the gym and to do conditioning and bits and bobs, to do that extra bit, to go that extra mile. Through the off season, it was great for us as well. You know, it's like a reminder of you get 1% better every day, and things like that don't happen again. So hopefully it's. I mean, I think it gave us definitely a good start against Loughborough, and I think it'll help push us through this season as well, because we don't want a repeat.
Just give me like. Sorry, go on, Lester.
Because speaking of that Loughborough game, so obviously Henry and Niall, what was that like for you two? Obviously, I guess Coach Walker as well. Obviously, you spent a few years there.
It was
and then you go in there as the other team.
I mean, for me, it was a fun game. It was just like it was just enjoyable. It was good to see people you played with the whole time. You know, still got a lot of respect for everyone there, and no, it was just really enjoyable, to be honest. And it's good to see them in the Prem. Obviously, like the last 2 years, we were both there, working so hard to to get to that stage and just seeing them perform at that level. And yeah, no, it was a good game. It was enjoyable. Niall had a little bit of a better game than me, so let him.
I actually had stats in that game, so but no, it was kind of fun, to be honest. It was nice actually seeing them in a different kit for once.
It's true.
But
Nice.
like seeing all the old faces who we like literally did one with last year was like quite nice. But I mean, it's just weird being on the other side, having to beat them.
It's bittersweet.
Just for Niall and Henry, we were having a conversation the other week about people doing masters and going to uni going to uni specifically for football rather than going. Was your decision to go to Leeds because of football, or was it academic, or was it a mixture of both? Like, would you have gone to Bangor Mud Dogs if their course in what you were doing was the best, or was it always?
I'll be honest, football definitely plays into it. I think if it's something you enjoy doing, and you're looking at a course that is at a decent level or whatever level you want to do. I think obviously football is a factor that plays into it a massive amount. So as much as it would be great to set up and say I came to Beckett purely for the uni. Obviously, I've come for the sport and the support that they give the sport. So yeah, I think it does play into it.
Yeah, I very much came only for sport.
Uni, you say that.
I wasn't even thinking of doing a master's until like April, and then I was like, I might as well I want to play sport. So,
for the band, I'm going to get that 10 grand debt for the bands.
So obviously, I know you guys have to leave fairly soon, but the news coming out of last week that the National League is being something that is considered, and definitely Leeds Beckett are very much front runners to be in that National League. Like, what are your thoughts on that and like the sport seemingly continuing to grow?
I think it's a great thing for the sport. It stops blowouts, which is great, because you've got, if it is going to be those five teams in that National League, it's going to make it more competitive. It brings what is currently the Premiership division. It brings them up a little bit as well. It'll probably in my opinion, it'll do really well for freshers, for guys who've never played before, because I know at teams like Cardiff, for example, you have 15, 20 freshers that have never played before, and they're starting for the team, and they're getting blown out by 70, 80 points.
It's held them to 55.
They did hold them to 55 this time, but it then means that guys are more likely to keep playing, which is going to be great for 5-10 years down the future. We're going to have more guys that tried it out, enjoyed it, relieve some of the stigma around the sport. And for us as Leeds Beckett, it's almost like you don't have those games that people consider bye weeks, those games that you can win on your worst day. You don't have any of those. You have to prepare, you have to play every week, you have to train hard every week. There's no let off. That sounds amazing.
Okay. So again, I'll try to keep this next one brief, but just during the regular season, how much attention do you pay to the Prem South, or is it simply just locking in, paying attention to the North, or is there a point where you're like, oh, this Portsmouth, Cardiff, Birmingham triangle is getting a bit tasty?
Really look, don't get me wrong, if the Saturday night games, we love to watch one of those, to unwind, especially when we've got a game the next day. If we're not playing and a game is live streamed on the Sunday, we'll tune in, we check the scores on Instagram, but we don't even really look at what's happening within the North. We look at who we've got next. We watch their film, we see how they play, and we plan for that game. We like to take it a game at a time. And when we play anyone from the South, we'll then look into them then.
So, I've got no more questions, SJ. Or
no, I'm
going to say, am I not allowed to ask questions? Just what's life now? Because obviously there was a big change over the summer, like a huge change in terms of coaching. What's kind of changed? What's the same? Obviously, I know a couple of people. I know Eli, George, kind of thing. They've said that it's only got better, but I haven't really spoken to him. So what's kind of different about the club this year?
Yeah, we're training harder. That's a big thing. I mean, actual day to day, everything's pretty much the same. You know, we still have our recovery days on Monday. We still have our gym sessions, like team gym, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're still doing the same amount of hours in film. We've put an extra 3. So last year we had like an optional couple of hours on a Saturday where you could do extra work. And now that's mandatory. So we have an extra 3 hours on the field on a Saturday. That's the only thing that's really changed with our schedule. And then obviously we kept a couple of guys from the coaching staff that coached for us last year. So it wasn't like a complete shift. Quite a few of those 4 or 5 guys came back, guys and girls, I'll say, came back. The only change is it's new coaches, which coach differently. We're running a different scheme, obviously. Yeah, bye-bye to the triple option. But, you know, it's still the same old Leeds Beckett, and we're still going to do what we do every week.
Okay, then sort of with that, guys, I know that 7 o'clock was sort of the deadline, so thank you for going over, but I've got no more questions, and we'll wish you luck on the rest of your season. But thank you very much for coming on, especially with everything. Speak your piece.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Decent chaps, aren't they?
They're right. Jamie, are you going to call them boring now that they've left? What's your one insult? Boring.
Out of all the teams that I've had an interaction with, they are, because I went to watch nearly all their home games last year whenever we didn't have a game, and I always was quite a big fan of their atmosphere. They're very similar to how I am in the way that they like to chat shit, they like to make things fun. I don't dislike that. Oscar, I do remember last time when Oscar was there, he wasn't playing and he was ball boying, and he's the only ball boy I've ever seen get kicked off being ball boy because he was trying to fight players, and it was incredible. But yeah, I do like them. I think that they're a good bunch. They're my kind of guys.
So now we've got that out of the way. I know that it's sort of shaken up a bit. We'll have the guests first, and then we'll move on to everything second. But yeah, no Dylan today. He's busy because he's got uni work. Because
imagine doing uni work.
Get more prepared.
God.
Going to move on to it. Going to announce the newest Sport Tank live stream fixtures. I know that they are up currently, but hey, I wanted to announce them. But well, what can you do? So week 5 had some good games, but I think week 6 I personally think is a bit light. There's one that sticks out, but we'll definitely talk about them going forward. So. Week 5, let's see how quickly I can do this. In the Premiership, the Newcastle Raiders fall to Leeds Beckett 2-38. The Bullets get strangely held off by the Cobras 54-0. In Div 1, the Aberdeen Bulls fall to the Mavericks 0-8. LJMU get their first win of the season 8-7 against MMU. Leicester Longhorns fall to 0-2 against the Sheffield Hallam Warriors 33-12 in what we said was game of the week. The NTU Renegades beat the Warwick Wolves 31-22. Bath Killer Bees, I mean, this one's a surprise, considering that all of us picked Southampton. Bath Killer Bees 35, Southampton 6. Bournemouth make their debut, beating Bristol 28-6. Reading Knights 2, Oxford Lancers 16, Hertfordshire 46, Royal Holloway Bears 6. And moving on to Div 2, ARU Siege get their first ever win against their Cambridge Derby rivals in the Pythons 27-0. DMU fall to the Braves 56-0. Swansea Titans 47, Bath Spa 0. Gloucestershire 20, Worcester 0. Solent Redhawks 0, Sussex Saxons 29. And I was the only fucking one who picked the Sussex Saxons, so you two can fuck off. Mate, I'm all about it. It's pick central, mate. I know ball. Kingston Cougars 19, Greenwich Manor 0, Imperial Immortals 52, 12. 12. Yeah. I thought that would just be a shutout. And Devon getting an absolute pick of the century here because he was the only one that picked York to beat the Sunderland Spartans 14. really stands out to you in terms of games from last week? Because there are some. I mean, UE 54 against Cardiff. What are we thinking about that?
It's mental to me that we're sitting here and going, a team's been beat 54-0, and we're going, yeah, they've done themselves proud there. Like, it's mental to me that this is a thing, but I think everyone is like, yeah, they've done well there. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? You've got to respect the grind of what they've done. They've really firmed down on the fun day out. Last year, I thought it was kind of getting a bit boring, but they've somehow just turned it around, and it's no longer boring again for me, and it's funny. The Instagram stories that they had, and especially the one where it was the false start from the wide receiver, was the funniest thing of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt.
He's run a whole route.
But yeah, it's just mental to me that we talk about a team getting 50 points upon them like it's well done, lads. Like,
but that's it. Like, all we can Bullets are the only team that we do score predictions of, and technically I won that because I was the lowest. I forget what I had, but I think it was like...
I'll give it over. You were miles out still.
Yeah, I was still miles out. I was still miles out, but I've got to take these wins where I can find them. All right? Sussex. I'm very happy with that pick. No one else back.
They got straight back up.
I think it's potential. I mean, title of this week's video is it too early to talk about relegation? Is it?
Well, from Div 2?
No, from Div 1. Yes, from Div 2.
Make Div 3. Make Div 3.
For Div 3.
Don't play any games. You just sit there for a year, just doing nothing. Just in season scrimmages. That's it.
Before we talk about like Div 1 or anything, I feel like we just need to talk about the Div 2 game with the C4 Chargers and the guy in the comments being like, putting his comments of like sleeping emojis, to then getting beat 52-0 at half time. And it's like, you can't come at us and then get beat 52-0 at half time.
I tell you what is, Matt. Glenn did it again. Glenn I think we're gonna have to get. I think we're going to have to get Glenn on the show. Obviously, Glenn only makes one pick a week, but he managed to do it again here by saying that Bath were going to beat Southampton. So, I'll tell you what, Glenn, I don't know if Glenn watches the rundown, but there's probably a seat for you. You'll probably be more well respected than some of us, Dylan. But
Glenn knows ball.
Glenn just to have ball right now, Glenn. But yeah. I mean, it's sort of part and parcel this week. I don't think it can really be an upset, or that you'd categorise as an upset. Bath beating Southampton's not too much of an upset. It just so happens we all pick the Killer Bees. Everything else is sort of by the by, getting a vote against MMU. I believe it was 0-0 at half time in that game, but it definitely doesn't reflect the what everyone will be able to do this year to go 1-2, and the game you're winning is 1-0 against MMU. Well, I think that something about Manchester. There's something. Someone wants to talk about Manchester, but I've forgotten who it is.
Oh, me? Yeah. So I tried to get Manchester on the show today, but they've ignored the messages almost as if they don't want to have a conversation about what's going on. If it doesn't take a genius for people to look on BUCS Play and see that Hull have handed them a walkover, and that walkover could have been avoided quite easily, I think. It follows on from the conversations that we had last week of MMU being unbelievably awkward and trying their absolute hardest to get walkover victories. And because Hull have went, fuck that, they're not getting the walkover over us, they've said, well, we need to give a walkover to someone, so it'll be Manchester Tyrants over MMU. I don't know if I agree with that. It goes back to the same principle of, do these teams want to play, or do they want to get easy wins to try and avoid relegation? Because ultimately, I think it's a bit of a disgraceful thing to be doing. You're playing 8 games a year and trying to scab 1-0 walkovers. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you being awkward? When a team's getting sent 25 dates to be played, like that are available dates that they can be playing, and they say, "No, we can't make any of them." I'm like, come on, like that is just it's not true. I would play on a Monday. I'd play any night of the week if we had to. We'd do it on a training night, do it on a Wednesday. No one can say uni's an excuse for Wednesday. I appreciate the coaches have work, but do it as a 7 o'clock and then everyone go on the piss straight after. Like, there's no excuse to not try and fit a game in. Yes, some unis are like, oh well, we don't let the unis take control and teams don't. If a team wants to make it happen enough, a team will make it happen enough. They can go to the uni and they can say, no, we're not accepting a walkover when we've been sent 25 dates that we can play. Like, we will work it out. Don't accept that, and we'll just delay it for now. And I just think it's an absolute disgrace. Both of the Manchester teams can hang their heads in shame. Hull Uni SU is a shit show. They've caused it themselves, but both of the Manchester...
Help them out, I guess, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, like,
well,
come on.
Surely with the walkover loss now, that's cooked. Like, they're...
I think they need to win out to have a chance, basically, with the point deduction, which...
Don't know about that.
Yeah, they're down to 0.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
No, I would agree with you on that one.
Is that it? You done talk about
I just feel like I'll be repeating myself from last week. They won't come on the show. They won't actually discuss it with anyone. They'll go hiding. So they won't even comment in the comments. They're just rats. MMU have done it for years. They did it to Edge Hill when they were in Div 2. They'll continue to do it. And I think that there needs to be a point when there needs to be a look into the rules. If someone is sending 25 dates that are available and you say, no, we can't do any, at what point do you turn around and go, hang on a minute, let's actually look at this?
These are the views of Jamie and not of Sport Tank. just gonna flatly put that out there, you know. Should have said that at the start, really.
Not as a Sport Tank perspective. Do you disagree personally?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know all the details because obviously you're looking at it from a whole...
Take away Manchester, take away Hull, make it a neutral team. Do you disagree with the statement of teams should do anything they can to try and make games happen and not just accept walkover victories?
No, and I think that's in the same in every sport. That's for me. That's part of my job. You never take walkovers because you look like an arse, and B, at the end of the day, the purpose of BUCS is to give students. Maybe I'm completely wrong with what the purpose is, but the purpose is for people to be able to play sport and get a good experience at uni through sport. By taking games away, you take away that experience, and that's why when BUCS have conversations about shifting leagues and stuff, the thing that is at the forefront of everything is what effect does that have on the student experience? Does it improve it? Does it take away from it? It's reasons why you can't have 2 teams from the same university in the Prem. It's because it takes away from the student experience if you're playing your mates twice a year. That's where it all. But yeah, it's crap. But there's got to be some underlying reason why it's happened. I don't understand why you would say no to that many, to like 3 or 4 days. You know, I don't understand it, but again, like I said,
because obviously I'm a little bit more agitated by it, because how I see it is, if it was me last year and this happened and we got relegated by the 1 point that we would have got as a deduction, I would be absolutely seething, because it's not even the team's fault, it's the uni's fault for the pitch booking error. And it's not even the uni's fault, it's the sports centre, which is a completely different thing. We won't go into the dynamics of Hull University and their sports centre. But I would be absolutely seething if we got relegated based off something that was completely unavoidable, if everyone just sat down and went, let's work this out. So so teams that get relegated because they deserve to be, and not because a walkover's been handed because we didn't want to play them on a day. And that's how I see it. But it would be exactly the same as if Hull accepted a walkover off someone because they wanted an easy win to try and give them a chance of staying up. I'd disagree with it then as well. It's not just because it's Hull. It would be the same in any division. I don't agree with this whole walkover principle. It happens a lot more in Div 2 because there's no repercussions. And I think that there should be, personally. What do you do? That's up for debate. But I just think that you ruin the sporting experience at uni is ruined when we don't play that much anyway. And then you're taking away games over things that can be avoided if people just simply sat down, got on a phone call to each other, make it a Zoom call. The SU sit down with the teams and say, right, let's figure it out. Let's work this out.
Then would you have a system like senior ball? Would you have like the yellow card system that senior ball has, or something along those lines?
I would look into it. It's a little bit different because they're never going to kick uni teams out. They're not going to do it. That was discussed last year in the conference meeting that I was in. They're not going to kick teams out. If they're under on numbers, then obviously it's a little bit different. But they're not going to kick Div 2 teams out and say, oh, well, you forfeited too many games last year, you're not playing this year. It's not going to happen. It's not fair on the uni. There's too much of an influx of teams and the committees, and that's not fair. But if you've got Div 1 teams forfeiting games, or then there should obviously be something looked into. There was obviously that thing where people in the playoffs were forfeiting games against UE last year. Was it last year or the year before when they were forfeiting games against UE? And it's like, I don't know how you can get to the playoffs and say, right, that's us done. We can't be asked for it anymore. I appreciate that the costs are high, but that's you're in the Prem. You know you're in the Prem from the start. You know that there's a chance that you're going to have to play them games. Don't accept being in the Prem. Do it. I gave them a lot of stick, but do what UEA have done and say, no, we're not doing it. I just think that something needs to be looked at. You're never going to be able to get this yellow and red card system in because no team's ever going to get kicked out. There's not an associate league. There's not a meta way that you can do that. But I think that it's just a disgrace that teams will do what they can to get easy wins to relegate other teams and to save their own asses. I can tell you right now, if MMU or Manchester knew that they would be, if the season hadn't started the way that it had, and they knew that it'd be an absolute walkover and a piece of piss and a fun day out, and they'd be able to go and put 50, 60 points on Hull, I can tell you now they would have sorted that game out and they'd have played it. Because they'd go, this will be a fun game for us to go and play and walk over some people. Because now it looks like it's a little bit closer, and because there's obviously 2 or 3 teams going down, that prestigious top 2 is a lot more prestigious now than it was last year.
It's understandable. I think it's an interesting chat that because obviously we focus so much on like the sort of top end of the sport and the blowouts and things of that nature that, you know, the issues of relegation don't really get talked about. But while we're on the topic again, I'll put it out there. We don't have to do it. This is simply just asking questions. Is it too early to talk about relegation?
I think you can maybe get a picture for some teams at this point. Some teams have played 4 games, but then, like, if you were to go through all the divisions, could we probably say who would go down?
Like, there's a couple of standouts. Obviously, with the point deduction with Hull, you'd have to say that they're quite high up to go down. Coventry are just down. That's not even a conversation.
Oh, you say this. No. I think me and Esther are going to say the same thing. Leicester have not started out the season. Yeah, but this is it. Like, I believe this week, it's Coventry, Leicester this week. You know, Coventry are 0-3. Don't get me wrong, but Leicester are 0-2. You know, like, Coventry still have a chance here. But then you look at, for me personally, like, Southampton have already beaten Bristol twice, but when Bath come out and put such a score on the Southampton Stags as they did last week, and you've got Exeter and Bournemouth as well. Realistically, I feel like, you know, sorry Barracuda, but you're looking at the Barracuda saying, you know, the time might be coming to a close. And I know that, you know, our good friend JM may not want to talk about it, but very well same could be said for Holloway as well.
I think that division is so much of a clusterfuck.
Yeah, like that's the problem with saying any.
Remember we said this last year about Essex. We said Essex were going down. Unequivocally, they were going down.
Listen, like I was even thinking about, like, do we talk about Essex? You know, Essex have, you know, they won the the Div 1 South. Exactly, like that division. But like for me, like you look at the Barracuda, they seem to be the standouts that potentially are going to be in the Southwest too next year, because like Southampton were probably Bristol's easiest opponents, and they've already lost twice. I can't see Barracuda beating Exeter, Bournemouth, or Bath. Maybe Bath, but Bath on a bad.
On your question of is it too early, we all know that it can all change when January comes and all the January students come in. Obviously, there's not loads, but all it'll take is one or two studs to come in, and it does happen. We've seen it happen.
Yeah.
It happens a lot with the Scottish teams more than others, but all it'll take is one or two to come in, and it's like, well, this changes everything. When the refreshers fairs come in and they do sports fairs again, and all your rugby players have gone, I can't be arsed getting my arse handed to me every week. I've had enough of rugby. Let's go and give it a try for 3-4 months, and you get a couple of them down. It can change anything. You never know. Anything can obviously flip. I would say that it's fairly certain that Newcastle are down, and I think that's why they're playing the funny guy, and they're trying to save their own asses a little bit and go, we'll at least have a bit of personality as we go down. But yeah, I think that they're a sinking ship.
So let's just move on straight into next week. We're going to go through some of the games there. Again, for me, there's one game that stands out, and it is in the South East 1. I think that would be my game of the week, but I will tell you what we are also going to be covering as we've announced our newest list of live streams that will be coming to you on a Sunday. So starting off in the Prem, it's Newcastle versus Durham, Loughborough versus the Gold, SGS versus Birmingham, Bullets versus Portsmouth in Div 1, Edinburgh Napier Knights versus Aberdeen, Leeds versus Liverpool, Warwick versus NTU in the return fixture, Coventry versus Leicester, Southampton versus Bath, Bournemouth versus Bristol, Oxford versus Hertfordshire, Reading versus Brunel, Essex versus KCL, and what I think is game of the week this week, personally, Kent sitting at 3-0 versus the UEA Pirates sitting at 2-0. But moving on to Div 2, because I do want to talk about that game. Obviously, I'll get into it. In Div 2, DMU are facing ARU, Derby versus Cambridge, Aberystwyth versus Bath Spa, Obi or Oxford Brooks, sorry, not OBU Panthers, versus Surrey, City versus Canterbury, Kingston versus Imperial, Keele versus Bangor, and Northumbria versus Bradford. Let's just skip over Kent for now. Let's get into Bangor, because I think if there is an opportunity this week, it might be Keele. But
I think, and I didn't realise until I saw the fixtures, and I gave them a little bit of stick on their own post. I think that they made the decision to postpone this week because they see this week as a winnable game. So they postponed the UCLan game as a let's try and keep people fit. We actually see this as a winnable game. We're not going to beat UCLan, so let's put that on the back burner for now, not get any players injured, and let's go for it this week. I will always back them. I think that the Mud Dogs are coming out, and I think they'll have been working on this. I don't even think they'll have looked at UCLan. Obviously, they will never admit it. I don't think they'll have even looked at UCLan in the preparation, and then after their last game, they'll have gone, let's look at our next game after that. Let's prep. And they'll figure it out.
It's one of those things where I don't want to say that a team would, take a tactical postponement, but if it is, I can sort of see where they're coming from. Like we spoke about it, as we speak about it at length. Sometimes, just some of these teams that are at the bottom of the Division 2 totem pole, you see it that York St John, they've won another game. Don't get me wrong, I don't think York St John are probably going to be competing for the top spot anytime soon, but it's always good to see these sort of underdog teams get away with a win. So moving slightly on upwards to the South East 1, Kent versus UEA. Mad, as far as I'm concerned. Like that very well could.
That decides it.
That could definitely come away. The winner of that could end up with the division. I mean, Kent for me has been, fantastic. Obviously, UEA coming down, they've been good as well, but it's very, very difficult. But I believe that's going to be played at Kent as well. So, for me personally, all signs are pointing towards Kent Falcons being 4-0.
Actually, I don't know, because the scoreline, I look at the KCL game, the scoreline that UEA put up on KCL compared to what Kent put on them. That's my only basis. And it probably looks like I hate Kent because I don't think I've actually predicted Kent to actually win yet. But like I said, it's just numbers, isn't it? It depends on who they've got on the day. You just don't know. But I would probably put UEA just above them. I think they split the series. I think they split both games.
I think that's fair, but
that wouldn't surprise me.
But obviously, but then it comes down to the big scores. So I think you are right. UEA definitely looking like they've got that advantage to potentially put the score up a bit more. But for me, like this, Kent haven't put a foot wrong. And I trust someone that I've been backing from the start to do well. I think Bath coming out last week with a big game. Who'd they have? They got Southampton immediately again. They do. They got Southampton again this week, coming out 35-6. I'll tell you what, though, one thing I didn't realise that Lewis Munt was playing for Bath this year. I had a lovely chat with him, and I was like, I wouldn't have picked against Bath if I knew you were playing for them, but he is. So like Lewis is phenomenal playmaker wherever you put him. So I don't think, obviously, I'm not saying Bath are a one-man squad, but having him on the squad definitely helps with the Killer Bees going forward. We can talk about some of the lower-end ones, Coventry versus Leicester. We briefly touched on it. Probably Coventry's only chance of getting a win this season. If you look at 2 seasons ago when Leicester were in Div 1, very much the same. Coventry beat Leicester twice, and I believe they got a shock win against Warwick towards the end of the season. But this is, Coventry's sort of one of their last chances to save themselves from relegation and sending Leicester back down. But obviously, with Leicester having that situation 2 years ago where basically that happened, they lost to Coventry and got sent back down, they're going to be looking to sort it out and send Coventry flying down into a tailspin into Division 2. For me personally, there's not much in the Prem that excites me. I mean, SGS Birmingham maybe, but Bullets Portsmouth, it's Bullet. No, like Loughborough Nottingham probably is going to be quite a good game of technical football, but I don't think it's going to go Loughborough's way. And Durham versus Newcastle, going to have to slide that over to Durham. So we're going to get into the picks so we can leave you all, and I'll tell people what the... Actually, no, I'll go into it now. So we've announced our latest 4-week slate, 4 or 5 week slate, 4-week slate for live streaming, where I'll be doing stuff. I'll be doing some of them. Steve, Mike, Kwame will be doing some of the others. So we'll break it down. So I'll just say Steve's contingent and my contingent. So Steve will be in Bournemouth for Bournemouth versus Bristol this week. I will be, thankfully, the Warwick Wolves have accepted my apology, and I will be doing the return fixture for Warwick versus NTU this weekend. And then next weekend, I will be in Cardiff for Cardiff versus Birmingham, which I'm very much looking forward to. Yes, I have got the confirmation. It will be Implosion 2. So I'm looking forward to the memes that come out of it, but also a very exciting game. And then Steve will be doing Bournemouth versus Southampton. We've got a 3-week Bournemouth stretch. And as far as I'm concerned, it's leading up to what I think is going to be an absolute crown jewel of a game, where I'll be shipping myself off to Exeter for Exeter versus Bournemouth. I'm very much looking forward to doing that game. Steve and that contingent will be at Holloway as they take on the Reading Knights. And this one, and the last one, is personally just for me, because I want to do a game from my alma mater. And it's quite late on in the season. I will be at the Montfort University as they take on the Lincoln Colonials. So that's all coming in the next 4 weeks. So definitely watch out on Sundays for Bournemouth versus Bristol and Warwick versus NTU. So
where is Montfort?
Leicester.
Let me just check something.
It's part of it's one of those unis where if there's funky shit going on, it's either there, Coventry, or there's one uni in London. I can't remember. It's Brunel.
I'm 1 day late. I was coming back around them days, and I was going to say I would have made the trip and done some live com against Lincoln, but I'm 1 day too late.
It's good you've got that many games, though. The fact you can do 2 games a week is pretty cool.
Yeah, like it's especially when you like. I think it paints a good picture. Hopefully, come the next year's slate, I might be able to move a bit more further northward. No, not to Dillon. They're going to have to take care of that themselves. But potentially more looking at the Midlands. But obviously with the Northern one, there's so many good teams there that I would love to cover. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to that Exeter versus Bournemouth game. Very, very much looking forward to that. I think that's going to be an absolute corker of a game. Don't get me wrong, the other ones as well, Cardiff versus Brum, and I think Warwick versus NTU, all good games.
Warwick NTU is a standout one for me. That'll be a barnstormer.
It's a return fixture. Obviously, it's very strange. We've got two with Bath and Southampton playing last week, and Warwick and NTU also playing last week, and then having the immediate return fixture the week after. I think could lead some very, very interesting changes happening on both Southampton, Warwick, NTU, and Southampton. So let's just quickly get into it as I struggle for technical issues again, because for some reason, despite all my housemates being out, my connection is worse than ever. So
it's all
God knows why.
You've been looking at.
It is, mate. Honestly, mate, I keep clicking on these pop-ups that say free Riddell Axiom, and I keep clicking them. Free Riddell Axioms in your area. I'm like, oh.
Clicking on that, and then we're getting people comment on the bottom of posts on sports.
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. See, I think that's how you know you've made it, is when you get dodgy comments like that, or someone is giving you a dodgy link in your live stream. They're linking the live stream in the comments of the live stream with a dodgy link, and it's like, but they're on it. They're on the live stream. They don't need to go anywhere. So starting off in the Prem, Newcastle versus Durham. Durham. For me personally. Yeah, full line sweep for Durham. Obviously, SJ is not picking this one, but Loughborough versus Nottingham Gold. So, Jamie, what are you thinking?
Gold.
I'm Nottingham. I'm breaking the vow of silence.
You're going for it again? Okay, then SGS versus Birmingham.
SGS.
So, are we going to do a score prediction for this one?
Of course, we're doing a score. Or for SGS?
Okie dokie. No, for Bullets.
I was going to say, yeah. Well, let's not be daft now.
Right. 64. I think part of Cardiff's success was just running that clock out as much as they possibly can. I think that's the big thing, and I can see Portsmouth. Portsmouth have got great coaching style. They'll do the same thing. As much as I'd love to say they'll keep it close, it's just not. It's not going to happen.
See, I'm going the other way, and I'm saying 98.
Oh, okay.
I was close to go triple figures, but I don't think they're there. You're just getting 4 games on the bounce.
Imagine if you're the Bullet. Imagine if you're the Bullets and you get 98. You'd be absolutely livid, wouldn't you? Absolutely livid.
Get to 98 and then miss the 2-pointer to get it.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to Division 1 in the Scottish Division, the Edinburgh Napier Knights versus the Aberdeen Bulls. Sorry?
You didn't give us your score?
Oh, good question. I sure want to split the difference. 72. I'll split the difference. I'll be a right coward and split the difference. Oh, it's difficult. No, 72. I'll stay with 72. Moving on to the Scottish divisions, the battle of two of the teams that came up in the big sweeper Div 2, Napier Knights versus the Aberdeen Bulls. I'm going with Aberdeen.
I'm going
I'm
Napier.
going Napier.
Okay. Good old Aberdeen. We've
Big
got
lad, turn up in his ice cream truck.
We've got Harriet Watt versus Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Yeah, sorry, Dylan. Not really. Hull versus MMU. Well, Jamie, I won't even bother.
I'm going Hull, and let me explain why.
Okay, yep, go on.
Firstly, MMU had a game last week. I will continue to ride this train that in that division, they're all going out on the piss that much that will make a difference. Secondly, I feel like they will come with so much of a vengeance about what's happening with the Manchester teams that they have to win this game. And I just feel like they're going to go on this redemption arc to try and save themselves from relegation and get so close, but not beat Leeds on the last day of the season. I think that they're going to get that close.
Okay, SJ.
Hull.
Oh!
Because in a shocking twist, Jamie, I'm also going to pick Hull.
Oh my God! Wait until the boys see that.
Yeah, I think the last game was so close, and obviously you did beat Liverpool. You know, it's like the stuff for me personally. I think momentum's on Hull. Obviously, they're motivated as well. Leeds versus Liverpool. There's another spicy game, but I still think Kent UEA takes it. But I'm personally going to go with Leeds.
Yeah, I think
Leeds.
Yeah, full line sweep for Leeds, and then we've got the return fixture in the game that I will be at. Very much looking forward to it. The return fixture of the Warwick Wolves versus the NTU Renegades.
NTU.
I'm flipping and going Warwick. I think that they should do some wild stuff.
I'm tempted to pick Warwick. I really, really am. No, that's not just because they're hosting me, but yeah, I'm going to go with Warwick. I'm going to put it out there. In the flip side of the Midlands one, Coventry versus Leicester.
Leicester. But Leicester in something like a 3-0 or a 6-0. And it'll be absolutely naff.
Scrap it. I'm genuinely often just pick Coventry, but I won't. But I am tempted just because it's funny. Okay, in the return fixture, Southampton versus Bath.
Bath.
Yeah, I think that scoreline may be a bit too big. Bournemouth versus Bristol.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, that's exactly the same. Oxford versus Hertfordshire. Just you, Jamie.
I'm going Hertfordshire. That game last Sunday was the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just.
I was about to make a pick there.
It was so boring.
If you want to make a pick, I will put it on there. But I know that some you don't.
Oh, I'm not making the pick.
That's absolutely fine. So for you as well, Jamie, Reading versus Brunel. Reading.
I can't back either of Oxford or Reading after that game. I just refuse. It was so boring. I fell asleep. It's the only American football game I've ever watched and fallen asleep to. It was just fucking awful. It's
a division that Brunel's in. It's just broken.
This is why the South gets so much stick, because this is it might be because obviously Sport Tank only really live streams the South games, and a lot of the games are lower division. A lot of them are no scoring. No, that's not a knock on the Sport Tank. That's not a knock. No, let me explain my logic. Because all the games that the North are seeing, we don't care about it, so we don't check on scores. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing are these boring games. I'm not saying they are all like that at all, but it seems to be this cycle of, and it might be unlucky on Sport Tank. I'm not saying it's this thing, but all of the games that the North are seeing are just being these really boring, drab, low-scoring games. And it's just like, this is why no one in the North cares about the South, because there's very rarely anything that makes us go, whoa, that's wild. Whereas when you look at the North and you're like, it's just points galore. Except Liverpool. Liverpool.
Oh
Liverpool.
yeah,
It's
like
points
I
galore.
can't. Yeah, 8-7 MMU versus LJMU. Yeah,
Yeah,
corker.
that's class though. Have you not seen LJMU's TikTok after it? Like what they lack for in points, they make up for in entertainment.
Brilliant. So Essex versus KCL. I'm gonna go KCL.
Essex.
Essex.
You're both boring. Kent Falcons versus the UEA Pirates.
UEA.
UEA.
SJ, you're going UEA. Yeah. Boring. Perry. I'm going Kent. Always back the Falcons. In Div 2, DMU versus ARU.
What was the most recent score lines?
DMU got blown out by Derby. ARU shut out Cambridge.
Oh, ARU then.
ARU.
Yeah, I thought as much. Derby versus Cambridge.
Derby.
Derby, yeah.
Derby. Derby are gonna cry if I 1 week go against them.
Oh, 100%. Aberystwyth versus Bath Spa.
Aberystwyth.
Yeah.
Oxford Brooks versus Surrey.
Surrey.
Difficult one.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going Surrey as
Put me
well.
with Oxford Brooks then. Put me with Oxford Brooks because I'll be that guy that might scrape a prediction on everyone else going for the wrong thing. Like, I couldn't care either way.
City versus Canterbury.
City.
Up the City. Kingston versus Imperial.
Oh, we not that's a quality game.
Okay, let's talk about that. I forgot about that game. I completely agree. We can have a quick chat about that. I think that's a good game. Kingston are on the rise, but Imperial are still a good side, and I think that Imperial take it. In my personal view.
Yeah, I think Kingston are getting there. I think. Yeah, I don't. I think Imperial still got a lot of what they had last year in the tank.
But it's difficult.
And like I said, I don't think they're a Div 2 team. They're not a Div 2 team. They got put down there, get housery from some other teams. Well, one other team in the southeast of England.
Thing is, like, don't get me wrong, like who did Kingston have last week? Like
Greenwich.
Did beat Greenwich. That is difficult. But then it's like, unfortunately, there's so many teams that aren't, good measuring sticks in that division. But obviously, Imperial beat City. I'd say City are a good side, but beating Canterbury, like for me, but Canterbury putting 12 points on you, bit red flaggy. But for me, I'm going with Imperial.
They must have pulled all the starters because if you're 52-0 up at half time and then you concede and not scoring, something must have happened.
Yeah. That's fair actually. Still going to back Imperial. What about you two?
I'm going Imperial.
Yeah. SJ?
Imperial.
Northumbria versus Bradford?
Northumbria. I think they win every game.
Yep, so do I.
Yeah, Northumbria.
Change my tune and I'm have to find out about the QB.
And last but by no means least, the Kiel Crusaders versus Bangor Mud Dogs.
Mud Dogs.
Kiel.
SJ, you've bottled that. What happened to them? We're riding them all year.
I don't know. I'm sort of on the Jamie train here. I think Bangor could pull this off. So I'm going Bangor. I'm fairly certain that Dylan has also gone Bangor as well because I've got all of Dylan's picks.
There's also absolutely no shame in losing a prediction based off Bangor being the one to let you down because you can always fall back on that. It was just for the vibes anyway. So it's a win-win, really. It's a Bangor have won, which everyone loves, or it's a, oh well.
You say, mate. When it comes to the end of the season, we top up those percentages because I'll do that later on when I put together the graphics, I'll put together who won the most last week, because I think it's me again.
I think it's me. From what
I think
saw, I think. Pardon?
You're talking nonsense, mate.
I'm not.
Mate, it's Sussex, mate. I'm all over it.
I also had NTU, though.
Yeah, but there's another one as well that I picked and you didn't. So get melted. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I do apologise for the technical issues. They will be smoothed out next week. I don't know why it didn't let me go to Facebook. But obviously this weekend we will have 2 streams. Sorry. In the Midland one. Last week and division was Bournemouth for Bournemouth for 2 this week. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you here, but also Facebook this time next week. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for SJ and Jamie, and just shocking, really.